Welcome to this yin practice. So I suggest if you have maybe 3 blocks, 2 blocks at least would be probably good, or if you don't have blocks, maybe cushions. You probably definitely want to have a blanket, at least if you're not using it as a prop to modify any postures. That's going to be handy at the end to cover yourself and be really warm for Shavasana, the resting pose. And just a heads up, it's probably a good idea if you have the time and you want to do a bit of a longer practice, maybe finishing with a Yoga Nidra, if you have some recording, or I have some recordings, if you are already following me and know where to look. Otherwise, just let's get started. Just keeping your props nice and handy close to you. So we'll do a practice on the liver and gallbladder today. Very good for spring. So we'll start right away on our abdomen in a Sphinx pose. So nice and easy, just getting into your pose. So we start activating the Jing in the kidneys. So just a slight compression into the kidneys. Probably also good if you've been sitting and rounding. So a little arch into the spine, but making sure that it's not pinching into the lower back. So if you need to adjust and release some pressure, if you feel there's too much pressure, you can always walk your arms slightly forward, keeping your feet probably mat distance apart, so it's nice and easy on the lower back. Otherwise, if you're going for the full pose, make sure that your elbows are right under your shoulders. So you don't want to have your elbows close to your ribs, otherwise you're going to be engaging into your shoulders to prevent from falling forward, and you can't relax. So you really want to find that strong, stable pose in the chest. So really finding a vertical position for your arms, so your elbows are shoulder width distance, right under the shoulders. So you can just really rest and drop those shoulders. Neck is long. If you feel this is a bit too uncomfortable, some people might like to bring a little bit of support with a blanket under the abdomen, maybe pubic bone, just for a little bit of support if you have a little tightness in the lower back, sacrum area. And you just relax there for a moment. So the liver is associated to the wood element. So we start with this pose, trying to find, just like the wood, a strong and stable pose, but at the same time flexible into the spine. And just take a moment here, few minutes, few breaths, to start feeling the sensations in the body. So particularly into the lower back, kidneys, as we start activating the Jing in the kidney. That's very good practice in Yin to start by activating the kidneys, which is a pretty important part of the Qi. This is the vibrant vitality of the energy in the body, or related to fluids in the body. So probably the most 2 important meridian lines or pairs in the body in regards to the Qi would be the kidneys and liver. So again, kidneys bring more vitality, and the liver is more about the general health of all organs, bringing harmony in the ki flow throughout the whole body, all organs. So it's also often referred to as the general of the army. So it has a great impact on all other organs. You might already be feeling maybe a bit of a stretch in the front of the body. So just as a quick reminder, if you've forgotten some early school biology course, the liver is just under the rib cage on the right side. So just a few more breaths here. And so throughout this practice, I'll be giving the names of the poses ahead or just before we start moving into it. So if you know the names, that could be handy so that maybe you can practice with your eyes closed all the way through. That's always a great way of doing your practice so that you can really internalize and keep the focus inwards. So we're slowly going to start to stretch into a child's pose. So very slowly to release from the pose. You can just roll your spine down, reaching forward with your elbows. Just taking a moment, relaxing your head down. Bringing your hands by your chest. You can bring your toes together and most probably keeping your knees wide so that we come into a child's pose with the knees as wide as possible so that we start to get into the liver meridian as we stretch the inner groin. So the liver meridian goes on the inside of the groin, inside of the legs. So this pose, nice and easy for the lower back, helps to relax in the kidneys, sacrum area from the previous pose, and we start giving a little bit of activation already in this liver line. Forehead is relaxed on the mat. Just feeling the breath, relaxing the lower back. Always trying to move nice and slow so that you don't disturb the energies. We'll be finding a sleeping swan or pigeon with the right leg. So you can gently come up onto your all fours, maybe gently walking your hands slightly forward, and you can come and place your right knee behind your right wrists and try to keep it quite to the edge of the mat, so a little bit out from underneath, adjusting with your right shin according to your knee capacity. So the more you keep your heel under your groin, the easier for the knee. Maybe opening the leg if you can, and try to settle into your swan by bringing your left foot back maybe slightly, but keeping your hips as parallel to the floor as possible. So you might need a blanket under your right hip. Just take a moment here to adjust. Again, making sure that you don't have any pain into the knee. If this is really too much, you can come onto your back for eye of the needle, which will be looking just like this if your knee is already crying out. Otherwise, just take a moment here to adjust as you can. Blanket or no blanket if you're more flexible. And as usual, good practice for the yin poses. You come and find your edge, so whatever that might mean for you. Maybe you can stay onto your hands if this is enough, or maybe you can come onto your elbows. This is where you might need a block. If you're staying onto your elbows, a few different options with your block. On the high side to rest your forehead, very good idea. Middle side, or maybe a lower side, or maybe you don't even need a block if you can come all the way down with your forehead onto the mat, stretching your arms forwards. So this pose really helps to now get into the gallbladder line, which is on the outside of the hip. It's going all the way down to your fourth toe. And you probably also feel it onto the inner groin. So again, this is where the liver line is on the inside of the leg, all the way down to your big toe. And obviously these both lines go into the liver and the gallbladder. So we're really activating the two. So you just breathe and feel the sensations on the inner groin, outside of the hip, the leg. It's a great time to practice around the liver and gallbladder in spring. This is kind of the season as we come out of winter, the cold season. So again, with the element of wood, the liver, which is more related to the windy season as it starts to warm up and probably detox from the winter where we've been maybe a little bit sort of stuck inside and a bit sluggish. So we start to really awaken all that. So the liver being the biggest gland in the body. Also, it's just like a factory, a big factory for the body. A lot of vitamins, A, B12, K, minerals that are stored there, and also anything that the body can't break up and use for energy, like heavy metals, any toxins really, that the body can't break up, gets stored here for detoxification. So it's really good to detox, otherwise when it gets a bit too clogged, too toxic, then that's where you start to find disharmony in these meridians, which affect not only the liver and gallbladder functions, which have to do with digestion, but also other organs, as mentioned previously. And a quick fact which is going to interest the women. The liver is also very related to the health of your nails. So that might entice you to practice this a bit more. Also related to the sense organ of sight. We'll just take a few more breaths in this pose. Again, see if you can keep your eyes closed, and we always move out of poses very slowly. So very slowly on an inhale, you can start to come up, walking your hands back, and we'll move straight away into a shoelace. So you can just lean onto your right hip, and you can swing your left leg around, crossing your left leg on top of your knee, and you want to try to bring both knees on top of each other. So if this is too much for your right knee, you can always extend your right leg, but you want to really try to keep your right leg bent, and your left foot goes out to the right. And if this is too much, again, for your lower back, the hips, you have the option to bring a blanket right under your buttocks. So just lifting up a little bit, your sacrum will help to ease into the hips a little bit. And you can either fold forward for a moment, or just stay upright, again, if this is enough. Choosing whether you need a prop or not. Also, if you have maybe a little bit too much difficulty or some space between your legs, you can bring a blanket or little cushion in between your legs for good support. And again, if you're folding forward, a good idea might be to relax. You can use cushions, block your hands. So we're still, again, working on the gallbladder and liver line on the inside of the groin. So this is really what we're focusing on today. This is also probably quite relevant to all the current period that we're living in, as in regards to the emotional qualities. The liver is related to anger and also compassion. So any feelings, emotions of anger, frustration could be related to imbalances in the liver key. So that might resonate with you. That is one of the great things about the Yin practice, which is quite meditative and slow, just to give time to not only feel in the body, but also watch and reflect on your emotions, your mental state. It's all related. So maybe emotions like reacting quickly to things with frustration, So you might have heard very often we hold a lot of emotions around the hips. So these are all poses that work again on the liver line, inside the hips, inside the legs, outside the hips, the gallbladder. So this gives a bit of time to think maybe how you react to current events. Slowly inhaling, coming up. But you're going to stay with the legs in a shoelace and just take a little variation to the left side. So you might need, again, a blanket or a block. You can bring your left hand in line with your left hip to the side on the floor and just start to lean to the left. You can either keep your right hand on your knee or to the floor on your right side. And if you are more flexible, maybe you can even bring your left elbow all the way down to the floor, or maybe you need some support to rest your elbow if that feels this is a little bit too much, or you feel that your right hip starts to lift up. So you want to try to keep your hips in contact with the floor as much as possible. And if you still have more, maybe you can even bring your right arm overhead, so you'll feel even more stretch onto the whole right side of the body. Just letting your arm to dangle over your head, resting your bicep on your ear. Just be there for a couple of minutes. So I'm going to try and make sure that your top shoulder, the right shoulder, is not leaning forward too much, so that you're really focusing on the stretch on the right side. Really working with the breath, allowing the breath to take you a little bit deeper into the pose with more ease. Every breath out, softening into it. Maybe you can really feel the energy flowing into the meridians as we start to come into quite a few minutes in this pose for the legs. A little bit more working on this gallbladder. Which is also related on following our path. So any disturbances from the exterior that might take you out of your path, again, might be related to some imbalance in relation to the gallbladder. And again, the meridians, organs work in pairs, so this is the liver and gallbladder pair, liver being the yin organ, which is paired with the yang organ, the gallbladder. And again, see if you can keep your eyes closed. We'll slowly start to unwind from the pose, going into a Shavasana to relax from this side. So again, eyes closed. You can unwind your legs. Oh, that's probably going to feel quite good. Trying to keep minimal amount of movement, and you just come on your back for a Shavasana, 1 minute. Relaxing completely. Just let go and just feel wherever you feel it the most, maybe inside the legs or outside, the groin, hips. Just notice and just enjoy that sense of release. And very slowly we're going to start rolling onto the left side to take the other side. Again, see if you can keep your eyes closed and just coming back onto your all fours so that we get into the other side in a very symmetrical way. Coming into our sleeping swan, so watch your knee. Maybe one knee is worse than the other, who knows? Maybe old injuries, so just watch that and modify accordingly. So take the time to get into this pose. Very beautiful pose, but can be a little bit tricky for the knee. So again, if you need a little bit of support, being kind to your own body. Always trying to keep your hips nice and leveled, and you take your time to come to your edge, whatever that is for you. It doesn't need to be all the way down. If you can't, that's completely okay. Whenever you start going forward and you feel enough in your hip, groin, outer leg, you just stay there and relax. Only thing you want to make sure is that you don't have any sharp pain into the knee, otherwise you adjust your leg or even come onto your back as I showed before. And then just really enjoy these beautiful pose, very good for the hip joint. And again, really working on the liver and gallbladder line. Very good to help release emotions. If you find yourself quite comfortable in this pose, you can take any mudra, maybe the yoni mudra or any separate mudra with your hands, if you have any that you like. And you just enjoy this delicious pose that can also take you into some deep spaces within as you relax your forehead and just be with your breath. And as we work through this liver and gallbladder meridian, which again is related to compassion, it is quite good to use affirmations of loving kindness and compassion. So anything that resonates with you, if you have any practices in regards to this, a little bit of metta or karuna, suggestions, may I feel loving kindness towards my body. May I be content with whatever arises. May I feel compassion for myself and others. Just let every breath help those mantras to sink in and feel it deep within. And again, we'll try to keep the resonance of the mantras within, keeping the eyes closed and just inhaling very slowly to come up and find this shoelace pose, swinging your right leg around, trying to stack both knees on top of each other. Adjusting if you need with a blanket under your hips. Maybe folding forward. So always trying to bring symmetry into the practice, yet at the same time adjusting between left and right side if any imbalances are present in the physical body. And just soften the breath to let you come back to a comfortable rest, moment of stillness. To feel, experience. Very slowly we're going to take our next variation, coming to an upright position and just starting to lean towards the right, using the appropriate props that you need. Again, no need to go all the way. Whenever you feel this is enough, you just find your stillness and you breathe through it. So just trying to get a little bit more into the gallbladder line on the outside of the body, left side, in this variation. And again, not going too deep, so we are not constricting the breath. It's quite important to find a pose that allows the breath to flow, so that you can really feel and experience the effects of the breath. Gently unwinding from the pose, coming up. And you can just lean back on your hands, unwinding your legs, maybe taking a few windshield wipers, feet mat distance, knees bent, and maybe just releasing for a few times your knees out to one side. Releasing into the hips, lower back. And we'll come into our last pose, dragonfly or straddle, whatever you might want to call it, with your legs out wide, opening as much as comfortable. So I suggest for this pose not to go too deep if you're a little bit tight. So if you have tight lower back, hamstrings, it's probably best to keep your knees a little bit bent. You can place cushions or blocks. Also maybe, again, using a little prop with a blanket under your hips so that you can help the pelvis to tilt forward and feel a little bit more of the working really on the inside of the legs here. So we, again, targeting the liver line. And you can keep your hands maybe outside, slightly behind if that's enough for you. Try to flex your toes, or if you can go further, you can start to lean forward. Again, if you have maybe a bolster, that's a pretty good prop to have for this pose, or blocks, cushions, whatever is appropriate to try to rest as much as possible. And you want to try to keep your spine as flat, as long as possible. If you start rounding, you're going to start to really lose and get a bit more into the back. So we don't really want to work too much on the back, but really work on the legs. So you want to keep your heart forward. And we'll just have a few minutes here to finish this work on balancing the liver key for a good harmony of the key throughout all the organs, all the body, helping to balance the emotions. So also the key in the liver is very related to any muscular weakness, anything to do with the tendons. Again, the nails, fatigue, feeling off center. So it's more than just a filter or an organ that works on digestion. It's really something that has a deep impact at the energetical level. And again, this pose is a really great pose, particularly to finish, as any forward fold really helps to turn inwards as you sort of curl and close. You really bring the focus inwards, more of a meditative pose, which also helps to induce relaxation, in which we'll move into in a moment in a final resting Shavasana. And again, as I mentioned earlier, a great practice is a short or a long Nidra if you have the time. So Nidra practice is really good to alleviate a lot of deep-rooted psychosomatic issues, mental stress. So lying down in Shavasana, really warm and comfortable, just playing an easy recording after a yin practice is really, really good. It makes the whole practice, practicing a little bit in the body to activate the energy, and then really sink in as you relax in Shavasana, listening to the Yoga Nidra is really awesome practice. Very good for sleep, insomnia, stress. Just taking a few more breaths in this pose. So again, if you're going straight into a Shavasana, just keep your eyes closed and just slowly inhale, walking your hands back, pushing props away, and then very slowly you can start to bring your legs back, so hands under your knees to bend your knees, and gently bringing your legs back together, and just slowly lying onto your back. So we try not to engage the muscles too much, not to awaken, and you just relax completely onto your back, possibly covering yourself if you staying for a bit of a longer Shavasana, making sure you're very comfortable, nice and warm, and you can really enjoy this relaxation, letting everything go. Maybe taking a couple of breaths in through the nose, and as you exhale out the mouth, you just really let go of everything. Any remaining tension in the physical body or in the mind, relax completely. Few minutes of pure bliss. Just feeling what you feel with compassion. Very gently, if you are ready to come out of your Shavasana, still with your eyes closed, you can start to get little movement into your fingers, toes, as you start to deepen the breath in the body. Maybe stretching your arms overhead so you stretch, maybe even on this meridian and gallbladder line in the stomach area. And then gently rolling over onto your left side, still with your eyes closed, taking your time before you push yourself up to a comfortable sit. Taking a moment to notice how you feel, the effects of the practice, the balancing of the emotions. Noticing how the practice makes you strong, stable, and more flexible. And we bring the tips of the thumbs to the third eye to close this practice with loving kindness, bowing forward to the earth. Hari Om Tat Sat. Peace, love and light. Gently blinking your eyes when you feel ready. That's it for today.